Hey guys, Sensei DePalma here. Yeah, I just thought a lot of people have been wondering and asking questions about DePalma JuJitsu, and now that we're starting to stream some things here on YouTube and in other areas, I thought I'd go through our history and our background a little bit, just to get some clarifications for people who are watching these that are wondering. I know we've been getting some attention even in Europe from some of the jiu-jitsu teams there that are more traditionally based, like Japanese jiu-jitsu, and then have been getting some attention from some of the Brazilian jiu-jitsu community as well. So I just wanted to give a little snapshot and a little bit of history on what DePalma Jiu-Jitsu really is and where it comes from. First thing that I want to smooth out for everybody is that when calling our system DePalma Jiu-Jitsu, it really dates back to a huge family lineage. Now with my son being born, he's the fourth generation of DePalmas that have a fighting background and that have trained in martial arts or in combat. Starting with my grandfather, he was Charles DePalma. He was in World War II and won the Silver Glove boxing in the infantry. And it's kind of funny because I use his situation to describe to my son what not to do a lot of times. I think most people thought he was going to win the Gold Glove in that fight, and what happened was his opponent hit him on the break. And it made him lose his cool, and he just started street fighting him and kept trying to tackle him and bring him to the ground and never got his composure back. So he ended up winning a Silver Glove, which is still really impressive in the whole infantry for the welterweight division. So, when my dad was growing up, his first experiences were with boxing. And then my dad wrestled in high school very successfully. He had an undefeated wrestling season, won a lot of CIF matches and just did a lot of really tough things in wrestling, was in phenomenal shape. And then right after high school, my dad started training in Ketsugo Jiu-Jitsu, which was in itself a very hybrid jiu-jitsu training. Back at that time, you didn't hear a ton about the Brazilian jiu-jitsu in our community, and so jiu-jitsu was taught a lot out of parks and recs and things like that, because it didn't have the popularity that, say, karate or kung fu did at that time, which was the early 70s. So he was taking jiu-jitsu like at a YMCA. But his instructor's name was Harold Brocious, who's also the man who awarded me with my black belt. And Harold Brocious started Ketsugo Jiu-Jitsu in 1951. He was a police officer who also did catch fighting and American Indian wrestling, and also lived with some national champion boxers. He was also a bounty hunter, did a lot of really cool things, got to apply the knowledge that he had, definitely in real life and street situations. And so my dad had a great background. He brought in the wrestling right into learning traditional jiu-jitsu, so he got to learn a lot of throws. He got to learn a lot of quick and dirty self-defense. His ground game was already really good, but he also got to do some some different types of ground defense, learning how to drive those elbows in and put pressure on the throat and things like that, things that you weren't able to do in wrestling. So at that point, there was a lot of catch fighting, a lot of wrestling, a lot of traditional jiu-jitsu and judo, and a lot of hand-to-hand combat and boxing that were involved in my father's training. So then here I come in the mid-70s, born, and by probably 79, I was starting to do training with my dad, mostly, some wrestling techniques. My grandfather was already teaching me how to box. And then we were doing basic self-defense drills, stranger awareness, things like that. By 1981, I had started classes in Ketsugo Jiu-Jitsu, and I trained there a lot. 1985, I did my first tournament, which was the Internationals as a purple belt, and I actually took second in the Internationals at that age, and I competed all the way for probably the next 8 to 10 years on and off. And I started to bring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right around 92, 93, which was my senior year in high school, and coming out of high school, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was starting to really make a noise here in the United States. Of course, in Brazil, it was already very popular, and I already knew the Gracie name because the Jiu-Jitsu, community was especially small then. I had a lot of friends saying, hey, I just saw some jiu-jitsu fighters in this thing called the UFC, and man, they just took apart, the guys that they were fighting, and I didn't realize that's what you did. And, in my mind at that time, I hadn't watched UFC yet, so I went on and I watched it, and I saw some holds that were similar to things that we did in Kitsugo Jiu-Jitsu, but I saw them be able to bring it much more into like a challenge match type of thing, where, yeah, you weren't able to go to the eyes or go to the groin or small joint manipulation, but you're able to do some really cool things and put your opponent in check and leave it up to him whether or not you went into checkmate, which I thought really represented the gentle art, which is what jiu-jitsu means in Japanese, really well. That you could put your opponent into check and have him decide if you were going to go to checkmate or not. And man, Royce Gracie blew my mind. So I actually was able to create a relationship with Royce. I went down to the Torrance studio with a couple of my students. We did an introductory course down there, and immediately started practicing the things that we were learning. And then by chance we were in the Bahamas, and I actually ran into Royce down in the Bahamas, and he and I had a great conversation and agreed to start doing some training when we came back. And after that, I started going down to a little studio on Pier Avenue in Hermosa Beach where Royce was teaching privates, and I started doing private lessons with him, and then bringing it back to my classes and integrating it into our wrestling and jiu-jitsu background, and started to make a really great fusion there. Then after that, I was also working at the time with a buddy of mine who had just gotten his blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His name was Ed Keller, and actually Ed was my training partner for almost 20 years in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. On and off, he and I would train together. I would always teach him things from the stand, judo and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and he would work with me on my ground game. And I spent a lot of time training with Ed. He was a great friend of mine. I actually miss him dearly. He passed away on the mat. I know a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community remember that and know him well. He was, I think at the time, one of 11 or 12 Americans to have a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then I also lost my father right around the same time at a very young age, which was very difficult. And I really made the decision at that time to start to call what I was doing DePalma Jiu-Jitsu, which is classified as an American combat jiu-jitsu system, because it uses all the quick and dirty and street and hand-to-hand combat techniques that I learned in Kitsugo Jiu-Jitsu, and all of the things that I had learned growing up, as well as me fusing in all the knowledge that I was learning in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I took the two worlds and kind of blended them together to create a complete jiu-jitsu system that encompassed a lot of self-defense as well as ground. Even though I know that the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community does practice their self-defense techniques as well, and I know the Gracies have a phenomenal program for both kids and adults in self-defense. It was something that I felt strongly about to do a tribute to my family. In no way was meant to disrespect my lineage or where I grew up from. It was actually to honor it by taking my grandpa's knowledge, my dad's knowledge, my knowledge. And then now my son, who's already been actively competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and also does judo and wrestling, and put him in the mix. 4 generations of DePalma, which brings in DePalma Jiu-Jitsu, again, which classifies in my mind as an American combat Jiu-Jitsu system. So in closing with the story, my son was born in 2007. He's a great athlete. Never put any pressure on him to be that way, but he's always hung out with us and always wanted to train, and he's been training since he did his first tournament when he was 4. He just turned 6, and he did great in December. He did a big wrestling tournament and went 3-0 in that, and just done really well in judo, and is just a great kid. So that's been a pleasure to have. And also want to make sure that I mention I trained a lot in the gi as well over with Todd Nathanson at the Academy of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Chatsworth. After my buddy Ed died, I really wanted to look for somebody that I felt comfortable training with, who had a great disposition, and that I could go in there and really work on technique and not have to always be getting past having to prove myself there, but could just go right in and work. And Todd Nathanson and his son Jared were just super accommodating to me, and I got a lot of work in there too. So I want to mention that you know, a lot of the new stuff that I'm using has come from that place as well. So anyways, I hope that that helps to clarify some things and give some background on where we're at. You know, I have some great students. I have some you know, different schools and dojos that I work at and that I teach at that are just unbelievable, that have a great you know, student base that I get the privilege of working with all the time, and just want to make sure everybody understood and knew where our methods and our approach was coming from. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.